Hi folks, and welcome to the Ace Tanker for the Object 252U Defender. Defender because this is the tank that came with the camo. If you didn't buy this tank with camo, it's just the 252U. But they're two separate tanks. Technically, they're two separate premium tanks, two separate sets of stats, even though it's the same tank, and the only difference is the camo. When this tank was made available, unfortunately, it didn't come with the no camo version, so I ended up having to buy the version with the camo, and it's basically another clown tank, although the camo on this isn't as bad as some of the others that came out around the same time. And this is one of my purchases that I regret, even though it is actually a very, very good tank. I actually regret buying this because shortly after this is when my rent was raised and I ran into financial problems, and I really could have done with the money instead of spending it on this flaming tank. But anyway, I ended up buying it and then not playing it because I wasn't playing World of Tanks, and I'm still not really playing World of Tanks. I'm logging in for an hour here and there when the internet is quiet and it's actually working. But yeah, I did manage to log in. I did finally get around to starting to play the Object 252U months and months and months after it was released. I'm finally getting to see what a beast this tank is. People complained when it first came out that it was overpowered, and it pretty much is. Yes, yeah. Just my games at it so far. They've been pretty awesome. I mean, it reminds me of the IS-3, but better, you know, in most ways. So anyway, we'll get on with the history because this tank has pretty much no history, absolutely no history. It's a concept tank, it's a paper tank. It never existed outside of a blueprint, and I don't even think it got to blueprint stage. It was more of a draft, a scribble on paper. Roughly in about 1944, mid-1940s, let's just say, Russia were already working on a successor to the IS-3, which had just gone into production. One of those tanks was the IS-6. In fact, there were two versions of the IS-6. One came with the tank that came in game, and then a version of the tank like the one that comes in game, but it came with electrical transmission. But they were also working on the IS-4, the Tier 10. So the IS-6 had two versions, and the IS-4 were both being worked on side by side. Now, those tanks actually made it into production as prototypes. This was a third one being designed at the same time, but as I say, it never even made it past prototype, or it made it to prototype stage. I don't even think blueprints exist. It's simply just a draft sketch. But regardless, we've got it in game, and yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to say for the history. It's just it's a concept tank. Now, one thing you'll notice is it's got the pike nose, just like the IS-3, but you'll also notice that the pike nose is much flatter than it is on the IS-3, so that means it's weaker, right? No, it's not, because I guess one of the reasons you want to buy a Defender is, well, we'll take a look at the stats. So I'm going to do a quick comparison between the Defender, which came out not long after the IS-3A, which is very, very suspicious because the IS-3A sold very, very well. We're going to compare it against the regular IS-3 in-game and the regular KV-4 in-game because they're two Tier 8 tanks that people can get their hands on relatively easy. And then we're also going to compare it against a Clan Wars reward tank, which was the IS-5, mainly because these are all very, very similar with the exception of the KV-4. You know, so yeah, you may get a hint of me being a little bit cynical here because, you know, it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. I might actually make a video about this, but when it comes to Tier 8 premium heavy tanks for the Russians, there are 9. There are 2 regular Tier 8 heavy tanks for the Russians in-game. 2. But there are 9 Tier 8 premium tanks, heavy tanks for the Russians. You know, 2 versus 9 does not seem very, very, you know, balanced in my opinion. Now, I admit some of those tanks are available as Clan Wars, but, you know, come on, Wargaming. 9 Tier 8 premium heavy tanks for Russia and only 2 in-game. That's kind of, it's just ridiculous. I'm also cynical over the fact that the IS-3 is a very good tank. It's still a very good tank in-game. It's one of the most popular Tier 8 heavies in-game. And, you know, the IS-3A came out, and the IS-3A was a step in Wargaming's recent direction of releasing tanks that are as good as, if not better, usually better than the regular tanks in game, and the IS-3A is better than the IS-3. It's got better DPM, it's got a better rate of fire, better reload, it's got better shell velocity, it's got slightly worse gun handling and accuracy, but it's got better DPM and better shell velocity, which means you're going to hit your target more often. It's got a higher top speed, it's got similar reverse speed, and the terrain resistance is almost identical between the two tanks. Maybe even, actually, the terrain resistance is a little bit better on the IS-3A over the IS-3, so the terrain resistance is a little bit better. Engine power isn't quite as good, but the armor, very similar, turret and hull, and, you know, view range, radio range, you know, very similar. So the IS-3A is basically an IS-3 with slightly less maneuverability, but better DPM. So this was a very successful premium tank. Lots and lots of people bought the IS-3A, and then, you know, I think maybe on the strength of those sales, not long after, we're only talking about a few months, the Defender came out. Now, the Defender, I mean, because the IS-3A was better than the IS-3, and this is me just, again, tinfoil hat being cynical here, but because the IS-3A was as good, if not better than the IS-3, lots of people bought it. And Wargaming said, wow, this is probably our best-selling premium tank in quite some time. Why? Oh, because it's better than the IS-3. So what we can do is maybe release a tank that's slightly better than the IS-3A, and then all those schmucks out there are going to go and buy the Defender, even if they already own an IS-3A. And that's pretty much what happened. The Defender came out, it's got slightly less DPM than the IS-3A, but it's got pretty much the same DPM, just slightly better than the IS-3. So less DPM, but it's got more penetration, not quite as much penetration as, or same as the IS-3, but slightly more than the IS-3A. It's got much better alpha damage at 440. Rate of fire and reload time, obviously not quite as good, but when you've got better alpha and the DPM is pretty similar to the IS-3, it's better than the IS-3. Alpha is, you know, awesome. That's what Russian tanks are known for. When it comes to gun handling, the aim time is better, but the actual gun handling is worse than it is on the IS-3, but it's better, and this is the main thing, it's better than it is on the IS-3A. So even though the DPM is better on the IS-3A, you've got more alpha, and you've got much better gun handling, aim time, dispersion, everything else than it is on the IS-3A. So the Defender, when it comes to gun, is better than the IS-3A. The only advantage the IS-3A has is slightly better DPM. That's pretty much it. When it comes to mobility, the Defender is no slouch. It's actually quite good, but unfortunately, you know, the IS-3A and the IS-3 are slightly better than it in most ways, especially when it comes to terrain resistance. So it gets a decent engine, but the terrain resistance hurts it. So it's not the fastest at 35 kilometers an hour, slower than the other two tanks, but it gets you around. It's still quite good. So, you know, we've determined that maybe the gun is better than it is on the IS-3A, even though the DPM isn't quite as high. It's not quite as mobile as the IS-3 or IS-3A, but it's pretty close. And then we come to armor and health, where basically the hull armor, 130 on front and 100 on the side and 90 on the rear. So basically the hull armor is better than the IS-3A or the IS-3. So, I mean, if you bought an IS-3A, when you saw the Defender come out, you were probably a little bit annoyed or a little bit miffed because, you know, the gun seems to be better and the hull armor definitely seems to be better, and then the turret armor, to add insult to injury, is a whole 1mm better on paper than the IS-3 or A or the IS-3, even though the side and rear aren't quite as good. So the armor seems to be better than it is on the other two tanks, especially if you bought an IS-3A. I'd be a little bit annoyed. It doesn't get as many hit points as the 3A, but it gets more similar hit points to the IS-3. So of course the IS-3A had to have a little bit of difference here just to make it a little bit different from the same tank. And the view range is the same, signal range is pretty much the same as well. So you know, it's basically a slightly less mobile but a better tank than the IS-3A or the IS-3A with regards its gun and with regards its armor. And the armor, even though the frontal plate looks quite flat on it when you look at the model in here, and again, this was one of the first tanks that took a whole new direction for wargaming. Look at this, the lower glacis. That flat lower glacis is still 224 millimeters thick. So you are going to bully lower tier tanks absolutely. I mean, even lower tier tanks firing premium are going to have problems going through the lower glacis, even though it looks like a weak point on this tank. The upper glacis, I mean, is a joke. You know, you get up to 320 millimeters in places. So yeah, it's a pike nose. So what you want to do is you want to basically stay pointed directly at the enemy tanks, and if you angle, then the pike nose isn't quite as effective the more you angle, but it's still very, very effective. I mean, hitting it side on is still 240. If it's angled, you're going to be hitting about 200. I mean, you're going to bounce with the front of this hull all day. The front of the turret, again, incredibly good. The gun mantlet, almost impenetrable, 240 millimeters of spaced armor, so you're going to be firing premium rounds to get through the turret or through the gun mantlet. Just the frontal armor is ridiculously good, and then you've got the only pretty much weak spot on the front of this tank, which are the cupolas. And now the cupolas are pretty obvious, but they're not big. They're not easy to hit, especially if you're driving back and forward and staying on the move, and you can get through the cupolas 150 millimeters thick. So you have got weak spots, but they're quite hard to hit on the front of this tank. And the side and rear armor is better than it is on the IS-3 or IS-3A. So we get to the side and basically you can see the side of the turret is around 210, 207, depending on where you hit it, the angle. So, you know, they might be able to pen or you might bounce. You can hit the, you can actually hit the, I forgot the name of this now. You can hit the turret ring. There we go. You can hit the turret ring. I've been away from World of Tanks for too long. Turret ring is a weak spot from the side, as is the upper area here. On most Soviet tanks, this is spaced armor, but it's still about 175, 176 millimeters thick if you hit it directly in the side. You do have a small strip of spaced armor, and strangely enough, this spaced armor only seems to have 45 millimeters of armor behind it now. Again, the model makes it look very, very weird here, because the spaced armor is good, but 45 millimeters behind it doesn't seem really that accurate. And then you scroll, you know, you push down and you can see a strip of weaker armor connecting to the spaced armor from the hull of the tank. So I think that's what it's talking about. But as you can see here, regardless, even though it's only 122, it's still counted as a ricochet. So whatever way this is angled, it is extreme. It's going to be quite hard to pen the spaced armor on the side of the tank, but it is a narrow strip. What you want to do is you want to hit below the spaced armor, above the tracks, and then it's only 100 millimeters thick. So tracks count as 20 millimeters of spaced armor. So again, only 120, but the tracks can absorb shots. So this is basically where you want to shoot this if you can get to its side. If you're in the front, shoot the cupolas. If you're on the side, shoot below the spaced armor above the tracks, and then the rear of the tank, back of the turret is quite weak. It is quite weak. It's only about 115 millimeters thick on the back of the turret, and the rear of the tank is only 100. So yeah, if you can get to the side and rear, you can take these things out easily, but this is a brawler. This tank keeps face directly towards you. Don't angle, point your tank directly at enemy tanks, and they're going to have a hard time penning you if they don't know what they're doing and they don't know to shoot your cupolas. So yeah, forgive me if I'm a little bit cynical, because, as I say, this tank came out so soon after the IS-3A, and the IS-3A was already recognized as probably being better than the IS-3, so it sold very well, and then they bring out the Object 252U, which is, again, a concept tank, never existed, but yeah, it may be slower, it may lack a little bit of mobility, it may lack a little bit of DPM compared to the IS-3A, but the armor and the gun handling make up for it. So yeah, really, I don't know. I would say it's a cash grab more than a need to actually get another tank into the game for the Russians, because nine premium tier 8 tanks for the Russians, it's just ridiculous. But we are here on Cliff. So rusty at World of Tanks. We're here on Cliff. It is a tier 9 game, so I'm a tier 8 and a tier 9 game, 5 tier 9s on either side, and we are just advancing. No arty in play, so I'm advancing into the middle. Our 132 goes down, the E50 is moving across, so you can see me looking, he's got my flank covered over there, so I want to take out this 111-14. Now, I'm going up against a very, very tough tier 9 tank here, but I want to kill him. Oh, hang on. There's a scout here as well, but there's no arty. I want to kill their tier 9 heavy, because he's probably one of the biggest threats on the team, or on the enemy team. And I'm in a Defender. I mean, I don't care if I get into a tier 10 game in the Defender, because the Defender is just that good. I mean, I didn't mind getting into tier 10 games when I was driving an IS-3 either, but the Defender can take on tier 10s, it can take on tier 9s, It's just that good. So we move up, we get a nice shot into the side of the Super Pershing, and that's 520 damage. Look, angling, angle, and one WC 111-14 has problems penning me. So yeah, that was the little shuffle there, trying to get an angle. So gonna stay hull down. 111 is aware I'm here. He wants me, I want him, but yeah, 520 damage on the Super Pershing. This is what this high alpha does. So track him, and miss my track, don't hit it well, we pen each other, so he does 483 to me, I only do 384 to him, unfortunately. So he's focused on tanks behind me. I don't know what this guy is doing, but again, miss my track shot, and unfortunately, this is the problem I'm having with my internet. I've got small lag delays. It's probably more obvious in replays, but usually I'm aiming better when I'm playing than it shows in the replays. But I suppose that's a convenient excuse anyway. So we've taken out the Super Pershing. 111 goes down. We're up to 1400 to 1500 damage. There are light tanks on the hill behind me, but our E50 on this corner has gone down, so I've got to go across. I've got to deal. There's a dangerous Skoda T50, and there's another Super Pershing. So checking behind me, just making sure that the scouts aren't planning to poke. And yeah, they are planning to poke, so I'm aiming. He goes for a shot anyway, go for a blind shot. And I thought that may have hit him, but no, I didn't get a kill. So anyway, let's ignore him. And we've got to go deal with this Skoda. We've got to go deal with two Super Pershings now, but they're both on relatively low health. And there we go. When you're at close range, Bulldog bounces on the rear of my turret, but when you're at close range, the accuracy on this tank doesn't matter. You've got 0.42 accuracy, which is not good. But when you're brawling, and this is a brawler, yeah, as I say, that looked like a side shot to me, but in the replay he had turned, so yeah, my internet is not amazing. So we get hit by the Skoda, and my aiming is just, it's bad. I'm struggling with my internet connection now, and I'm struggling with the fact I'm rusty. And you're going to see this in a couple of replays that are going to be coming to the channel over the next few days. Just, I don't know, it's the same sort of mistakes, same sort of shots. I'm aiming at where I'm missing easy shots. You know, that's basically what it is. I'm aiming at, well, I should be aiming at a weak spot. My reticule is actually aiming elsewhere, but still hasn't hurt me too much. So I'm on this corner, and what I don't want to do is get basically taken out by the Skoda. Skoda's got the autoloader. I don't want to risk getting taken out by the Skoda, so we'll put another shot into the Super Pershing because he's proxy spotting. The Skoda T50 has gone back. So our 111 has come up. I'm trying to help the 111. Unfortunately, the aim time is not great, but we can take out the Super Pershing. That's one gun less shooting at the 111, but unfortunately he goes down. I don't know what our 111 was doing. Skoda T50 has got run. So now ST1, completely oblivious. Oh no, he does realize I'm here. So shot on the cupola, and unfortunately it bounces. But he bounces on me. We're hull down as well, and this guy just keeps advancing. What's he doing? And now he's giving me his lower glacis. What is he doing? Anyway, yeah, easy kill for kill number 4. That takes us up to 3k damage. Alright, so now the threat in the middle of the map has been taken out. It's just a bunch of TDs. The Skoda T50's up on this corner. We're winning 11-7. It's very comfortable. And this thing is just a beast. It's a brawler. You want to get up close and personal where the aim time doesn't matter, where the accuracy doesn't matter, and it really, really kills me. I'm seeing so many bad players since coming back to World of Tanks and starting to play, trying to play a little bit more regularly. All in premium tanks. You know, how often do you see people in Defenders or 252Us without the camo just sitting at the back on the red line, sniping on the red line? So this Skoda's got me proxy spotted. I'm going to get away from this Skoda. I'm a little bit worried about going up after the Skoda because there's a Borsig and that STRV 103. And they're going to have shots at me if I go around the corner after the Skoda. Also, he's got an autoloader, so if he tracks me as I go around the corner, I'm dead. So I don't want to get shot in the rear and side. I'm just going to set up here and try and take out the TDs because Borsig is down below me, STRV is retreating. Okay, and Skoda is no threat. So I'm keeping an eye on the mini-map, making sure the Skoda doesn't poke. And we're just going to set up here Trying to get a shot. My view range, not the best. He's probably going to beat me with his camo rating, but someone else spots him. I get spotted. And we aim as long as we dare, get a nice shot in for 451, get ammo racked. Another huge difference I've noticed in the game since coming back is I get ammo racked pretty much every single game now. I mean, I have never, ever, ever had as many modules and crew members and ammo racks as I had since 9.18 or 9.19. Wargaming they've definitely done something. It isn't in the patch notes, but they've definitely made modules far weaker. They've made ammo racks far weaker, but SGRV comes up, take him out, so 411. And I mean, that's not a high, it's not a particularly high roll for this gun. I mean, this gun is just, the alpha is awesome. Borsig goes down, it's just the Skoda. I can afford to take a couple of, maybe one hit, but there we go. There you go, 81 health, and this thing is just a beast. There's my Top Gun. So finally happy to get around to playing the Object 252U, and it's pretty much what everyone said when it first came out. I think it's pretty much pointless to play the IS-3 unless you're grinding it. I think it's pointless to play the IS-3A, even though it's still a good tank, because I think the Defender is slightly better than the IS-3A is. The Alpha and the armor make a huge difference. Yeah, this tank is just a bully. It's not a sniper. Please stop sniping in it. If you're one of those players out there who snipes in an Object 252, you do not have the accuracy to snipe with this gun. You've got to brawl. Use your armor, get up close and personal where accuracy doesn't matter, and just shoot people in the face. That's what this tank is built for, and even in a tier 9 game, you can do that. Even in a tier 10 game, you can basically stick with your other heavies and give them support. Let them tank the damage, you pop out, take shots, pop back into cover, because essentially, you've got a tier 10 gun with maybe slightly less penetration. Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong tank, but as I say, I'm a bit of a cynic, and the fact it came out so soon after the IS-3A, and the IS-3A sold very well because it was better than the IS-3. And then the Object 252U is, in my opinion, slightly better than the IS-3A, and it probably sold just as much, if not more. And that's just encouraging Wargaming to constantly bring out these overpowered tanks. They sell, and Wargaming like money. Of course, most businesses do, but yeah, just me being a little bit cynical. As I say, I regret buying it because at the time I spent the money on this, I really didn't know I would need it. So, but it's still in my garage. I can't really give it back at this stage. But we finished up with, I forgot to mention, finished up with the Ace, finished up with Steel Wall, Top Gun, finished with 1538 XP for the Ace, 4,000 damage done, 6 kills, as well as the damage. We fired 16, hit 14, penned 12. So nice penetration, nice alpha, and when you're up close and personal, I wasn't doing very much sniping at all, the gun can be quite accurate. If you're sitting back and you're sniping, the gun is not accurate. It's not a sniper. We received 11 hits and only four actually did damage, 7 bounced, and that's what the armor does. We did 881 assistance damage and finished up with 99,000 credits after ammo and repairs. So it was my first game of the day in the 252. As I say, I just started playing it maybe a few weeks ago, yeah, I've been impressed. I've been impressed very much so. So about 5,000 XP overall for that game. So yeah, Object 252U. If you want to encourage Wargaming to keep on bringing out overpowered tanks, then I can pretty much recommend this one, even though it's not a review. I'll get around to that eventually, hopefully, touch wood. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.